Hello everyone. Today I will be teaching you how to create a REST API using the Rust programming language. Let's get started. So I opened Visual Studio Code and I'm going to create a new Rust project with cargo new and I'm going to call it REST API. I'm going to open that. Open my terminal back up. And to start, we're going to set up our dependencies and the structure of our project. So I'm just going to copy it over so I don't have to type it out and then explain. So here we're setting up a library and we're going to have to create a file called lib.rs to house that library. And then we're also having a binary in this project. This just allows us to organize our code a little bit better. Now for our dependencies, we're going to have Rocket, and this is what runs our Rust API. It's like the engine for it. And then Serday, this will deserialize and serialize our data structures so that we can store them in a JSON format and return them in a JSON format. This dependency down here, Rocket contrib, this is full of different packages that help you build Rocket applications. And so we're just using the JSON feature in this case. So I'll save that and I'm going to go ahead and build it because that's going to take a while to compile everything. And it'll probably fail because we didn't set up our files correctly. So inside of source, we'll need a new file called lib.rs. And we can rename main to be bin. And then inside of our library, we're going to have two modules. So I'm going to just define those here. They're going to be public. We're going to have a database one. And we're going to have a model to keep all of our data structures. And so for each one of these modules, you need to create a folder with that same name. Inside of source, new folder, and name that one DB. And then inside of DB, for each module, you need to have a mod.rs file. And the naming is very important, so you have to keep it that way. And then I'll make a model module, and I'll add a mod.rs. So those are all of our files. Now we can go ahead and build this, and I think it'll work successfully. Yep. And if we run it, it just prints out hello world. That's what's in our bin right here. So we're going to create a function to initialize our rocket object. I'll just call it rocket. It's going to return a rocket data type. And I'll just copy it over right now. So this is how you initialize a rocket data type. You say rocket : ignite to call this function, and we're mounting a movies endpoint. And it has 0 routes right now. So it won't do anything. And now we need to call this from main. And we need to launch it. So now I would expect our API to start up if I do a cargo run. Okay, so it's complaining because I haven't imported the Rust dependencies in order to use macros in this project, and this with an whenever you see a keyword with an exclamation point, that's a Rust macro. So you need to add a few things in order to use that. So we have the feature proc macro hygiene and declare macro, and then macro use. And we're importing the crate rocket here, so this will actually work. Gotta save it first. There we go. So now if I follow this link into the browser, you can see that Rocket responded with 404 because this page doesn't exist. So now we'll add a route so that Rocket can actually respond correctly. Let's just call it, all right, we need to add the macro on top, get. We're going to call the function get movies, and it's going to return a string for now. We'll change that to JSON in a bit. Now we need to restart, cargo run, and request /movies. Oh, and we forgot to define a route inside of here, so get movies and reset it. Movies. It works. So now to make this more interesting, let's change this to return some JSON. And we're going to import one of those Rocket contrib packages in order to do this. JSON. And we can literally just call this from JSON and say it's going to return a JSON string. And then let's restart that. Yep, and now for the raw data, it is still a string, but it comes back as JSON with the header JSON. To make our API more meaningful, we're going to want some real data to actually query. So I just added a JSON file inside of this data directory, and it just has 3 movies inside of it, each with a title and a genre. And now I'll go over to our database module, and I just defined this string, and that's the path to the actual JSON file, and I imported the file system. And we're going to create this function that reads from that file. So I'll just copy that code over. So what we're saying here is we're calling the file system library, and we're just reading in from this path to a string. And if it fails, it'll print out this error message. And then we're taking that string and we're converting it into our Rust data structure movie, which we still need to define using this JSON from string function, and then we just return our movies. So now let's go over and define our movie inside of our model. That's going to be a pub struct. We're going to call it movie, and it has a public title of string and a public genre of string. And we need to add some macros on this for JSON to deserialize. And we need to import those. Okay, and that's it for model. Now we need to actually import it here. So we'll do use create model movie, and that should import it. Now let's create a function that will just return this to our endpoint, and we can make it public. Public function read movies, and it's going to return an option of vector movie, and a vector is just a list of items basically. So now we'll call match on movies, and if the result is okay, we're going to just return some movies. And if we get an error, we're going to return none. Now we should be able to call this use lib db, and then instead of returning the string, we'll return db read movies wrapped in our JSON call. And we also need to import the movie data type and change string to vector movie. Now we should restart this and see if everything works. All right. Oh, this needs to be wrapped in an option. Okay. So now if we request movies, we should expect our data. Yep, there it is. So we get back these 3 movies. Now, maybe you want to request just a single movie. So, and you would say like, you want to say /movies, and you just want to get Incredibles. So you would say /movies/Incredibles to just return Incredibles. So let's add that functionality in. So I'm just going to duplicate this. And at the end of the slash, put a title inside of brackets. And then it's going to come in here as a raw string. And this is a rocket data type, so we'll have to import that. And then this is just going to read a single movie, and we're going to pass our title into there. But this is a raw string, so we need to convert it to a normal string first. So in order to do that, Rocket provides a function called URL decode. And you can call it like this. Title.url decode. And if it fails, we're just going to print an error message. And now we need to create this function inside of our database that reads a single movie. And it takes a title of string and it returns a single movie. And we're going to start it out by reading the whole file again. And if it successfully reads the file, we're going to create this lambda function. And we'll search for the index. So we're iterating over the list of movies and finding the position in which this movie title equals the title that was passed into this function. And if we successfully find an index, then we have to clone that movie and return it. Else we'll just return none. And then we also need to handle the error case down here. And that's just going to return none. So this is actually going to return just an option of movie, not a vector. And we need to remember to include our route. And then restart our server. Okay, and I imported that incorrectly. Let's see how to do that. So that's inside of the HTTP module. Let's try that again. Okay, and if we refresh this, we should see Incredibles. Yep, and with the animation genre. Now we have 2 endpoints. We have get the whole list and get a single movie. but maybe you want to be able to create a movie and delete a movie. So I'll show you how to add those as well. So I'm going to copy this get, paste it, and then change this to post. And so that's using the post method, post HTTP method instead of the get method. And we'll call this create movie. And it will, I'll just return the same movie back if it works successfully. And this is going to take some data along with the route. Data equals movie. Yeah, so it's going to take a movie of type JSON movie. And so when we call our DB method create movie, we'll name that insert movie. And then when we call movie, we'll have to do position 0 since it's in JSON. And so let's create this function inside of our database module. So public function insert movie. It's going to take a movie type. It's going to return an option of movie. And it's going to look very similar to this. So I'll just copy that over. But we don't need to look for the index. So instead, what we're going to do is we'll need a mutable movies vector so that we can add our new one onto the end of it. And so we'll do movies.push movie. Now our new movie is on the list. And now we need to create a function to write the movies. So let's just do write movies. And then we need to return that same movie. So we'll return it with sum. And I'll just copy the write function over. So here's the write movies function. And what we're doing in here is we're converting our vector of movies into a string, and then we're overwriting the entire file with that string. It's not the most efficient way to do it, but it works. And so we're calling that, it looks like, yeah, we're calling this correctly from here, and return some movie, but I'm pretty sure we're going to have to clone this. And the reason we need this clone is the movie object wouldn't be accessible down here if we just pushed it onto that list. So we need to clone a new one of it. And so that's returning none correctly. Yep. Okay. This looks good. Now let's make sure we're calling our route. Create movie. And I'm going to open Postman. This is the tool I like to use to make API requests. Makes it pretty simple. And we're going to do a post on movies. And I'll post Get Out, which is a thriller. Oh, well, we need to restart our server first. And once we do that, yeah, so it returned it back, which means it was successful. And now we can get/get out, send that. Yep, and it returns it back. All right, now let's handle the case of deleting movies. That's going to look very similar to our get single movie, but it'll call the method delete instead. And we'll call the database method delete movie. And then don't forget to add it to your routes as well. We'll just handle that now. And we'll just have this return a JSON bool. true if it deleted successfully, false if it didn't. Now I'll copy the insert movie method, and it's going to look very similar to this call. So we're going to have a title of string, and it will return an option of, actually it won't return an option, it will just return a bool, because instead of returning none, we can just return false. And yeah, so we're finding the index where the title matches, and then we'll take movies and we'll call dot remove x. But this actually needs to happen in here. So movies.remove position x. And then we'll rewrite it using our write method. And then we'll return true instead of this. Okay. And this should be called delete movie. Now, make sure everything's correct in our binary. We're calling delete movie. Now let's restart. Okay, back over in Postman. We're going to call delete on get out. And it returns true. So it worked successfully. If we try it again, it shouldn't work. Yep, so it's false. Thanks everyone for watching. If you have any questions about Rust or Rocket in particular, please leave a comment down below and I'll be sure to answer that. Peace.